Welcome back to another episode of The Grace Between Us. I am Pastor Laurie Hurst, and this is...
I'm Pastor Nathan Hurst.
And we're going to continue on our series for the 4 types of giving. And today we're going to talk about alms giving. So we're pumped about this. We know you're going to get something out of this, so stay tuned. We got some more information for you.
And if you've ever wondered what it was to actually give to the poor biblically, if you've wondered what it was to give an alms, what that means, this is the episode for you. And how to do that. What did Jesus mean when he said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
More to come.
Let's get on that. We'll see you in just a minute. Today, as Laurie said, we are discussing the concept of almsgiving, or giving to the poor is probably a better vernacular, a better way to say
Nobody says alms anymore.
No, you barely hear the word alms. I mean, sometimes in your bylaws and nonprofits and churches, you have the idea of the alms.
Or benevolence.
Benevolence.
You know, you hear that term a little bit more, giving to the poor.
Yes.
It's more what we know.
So first, let's define poor. Poor is anybody who's less fortunate than you are.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they have to be destitute. It doesn't mean that this person has to be living in their car.
Right.
Although that does encompass those people.
Sure.
But anyone who's less fortunate than you are, and I don't mean like they get paid a little less. I mean less fortunate. So hopefully we don't have to describe what that means to be less fortunate. But just, not necessarily having the breaks that you're hitting. Some people like to tie this concept into justice. That's fine if you want to. Biblical justice and what we call justice in society are totally different things, but whatever, run with that if that's what makes you feel good. So, first of all, concept of alms. Alms giving, or giving to the poor, is the only one of the 4 types of giving that literally goes person to person. So this is a knee-to-knee, eyeball-to-eyeball type of encounter.
Well, it means it doesn't go to God. It goes to someone else.
That's right. It goes directly to another person. In fact, when we give our alms giving, we're actually doing this as an action of connecting personally with someone and their need. We're not giving just to give money away.
No.
Right? We're not giving just to maybe invoke some of these other promises that God has. There's a specific promise laid out to almsgiving. We'll get to that in a second here in Psalms chapter 19. But the point of almsgiving is to connect with another human being. Right? People are the commodity in alms.
Yeah. And it could be, God lays someone on your heart. Maybe they hit a hard break, who knows? Maybe their car broke down. Maybe they just need groceries.
That's right.
It could be, maybe you want to bless them on going to a concert. Something as simple as that could be giving to someone else, as God lays that on your heart.
As God lays on your heart, but it's not about giving just petty things away. No. It's about giving someone and helping them out in a time of crisis. We're going to get to that in a moment. But the idea of giving to the poor, again, someone less fortunate, it's not always about dollars and cents.
Right.
It's about giving when there's a crisis moment and helping someone out of that ditch. So a lot of times it has to do with finances. Sometimes it has to do with our love. Sometimes it has to do with our time and attention. Maybe it's giving some of your talents away. Maybe it's just brute muscle, right? You're helping somebody move in a very tense and dangerous time in their life.
Right.
And so they need that help. That could be a way of almsgiving. So let's get on here in a second.
Yeah.
Psalms chapter 19.
It says, one who is gracious to a poor man lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his good deed. So
that's right.
Let's unpack that. So that means that.
So this is the promise, the God promise of this. Yeah, go ahead. I'm not trying to talk over you. Go ahead.
So that means that when we give to someone, it specifically says, one who is gracious to the poor man lends to the Lord. So we're lending to God. So that means he is going to give it back to us. And he says he will repay him, which is us, for what we have given to someone. So if we give, $20 to someone because they can't, for a meal, God says, hey, I'm going to make sure that comes back to you.
That's right.
You're going to get that $20 back in your life.
So one of the things that's interesting about this is there's no multiplier effect. God doesn't say if you give to the poor that he's going to multiply it. You're going to have a blessing that you can't contain that he talks about in other areas of giving. No. He doesn't say there's a multiplier effect to this. However, he does say that it's not going to bleed you dry.
Yeah.
Right? So that you can give to those in need and not worry that you're going to be without. God's going to make sure that money comes back. You give $20, he's going to make sure to get an extra 20 back into your hands.
Right.
But he's not multiplying that. Right. There's no multiplier factor to that, making it your 20 turn into 10 or turn into 40.
Yeah.
Multiplier, not subtraction. So what a lot of people do is they say, well, I gave to the poor. Isn't that the same thing as tithe? And then they want the blessing of the tithe. No, God says I'll repay. So you're going to end up at the ledger. It's going to be in the black, or it's at least going to be at zero, right? It's not going to be in the red when you give to the poor.
Right.
However, there's not a multiplier effect. We're not going to add to it. That's not God's intention, because it's a person-to-person encounter, right? This isn't a multiplier effect because God isn't the one you're ultimately giving to. Now, it says you lend to him, meaning he's the one that repays the debt, not the person that you gave to.
Right. If you give alms,
Yeah.
please don't act like it's a loan.
Oh, come on.
Give to someone. If God lays that on your heart, you're supposed to give to them. Give it to them knowing that this is what God told you to do.
That's right.
And that you're not expecting it back.
That's right. If you honestly are giving in this giving to the poor alms way, you're not expecting anything to come back.
You're not going to hold it over their head. You're not
No.
going to say, hey, remember, I gave you some money.
Remember
so
that 20 I gave you?
You got to help me out. No.
Now I'm in need,
That
so
is
God
not-
wants to pull out of your
Don't do
piggy
that.
bank.
Don't do that.
That's not how any of this works. Rely on the Holy Spirit to get back into your life those gifts that you've given away from yourself. And he'll do it. He's faithful to do it. So moving on, God never said that we were to keep all of our giving silent.
No.
But he did talk about one specific type of giving, particularly the words of Jesus. He talked about one particular type of giving and said to stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's particularly this idea of almsgiving. So we've seen this, and this is hard for our church at times. You see the pictures with these starving kids in Africa and their bloated bellies, and everyone's talking about, look at all the good things we did to these little starving kids in Africa. That's against the word of God. We're going to get it here in just a second, what Jesus says. Or someone puts on, Instagram or Facebook, oh, we collected all these coats for these underprivileged kids. Aren't we awesome?
Right.
And they shout it all over the place. And, we've done a lot of great things in our church community here at Grace.
Right.
We've done a lot of great things for people who are impoverished and who are in need. And 99.99% of the time, you're never going to hear about it because we understand the value that's we're about to unpack here in Matthew chapter 6.
It says, so when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the
Come
streets,
on.
to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. That's in Matthew 6, 2, and 3.
So these are the words of Jesus. He's looking at the religious elites who are literally shouting about their good deeds to the
what
poor.
I've done.
Oh, look
I'm
at
so awesome.
Yes, it was the
I'm so
modern.
cool. Look
It was
at
the
me.
modern day flexing for the gram.
Yeah.
You're showing off your good deeds, right? And Jesus says you got your reward. Everybody heard you. You got your reward. So if you take alms, the way to short circuit the blessing, where God's going to give back to you what you've given, he's going to make sure that you don't go in the red. The only way to short circuit that is to puff yourself up. See, one of the reasons some of these organizations that are helping the poor, that they constantly are in need and it looks like they're always in the red, is because they can't shut their mouth about what they're doing.
Ouch.
They can't shut up and say, okay, God, you've led us to help these people. We're not going to go crazy about it. We're going to lead with vision. We're not going to lead with stories to pull on you, tearjerker stories to pull on you to hopefully fund our vision for the next year, because it's not really funding vision then. You're just funding someone else's impoverished state. And the reason Jesus talks about this is very, very clear. Why would Jesus give us this directive? To not go around shouting about the gifts that we've given to the poor. Because Jesus understood that you should protect a person's dignity in their time of crisis.
Right. We don't want to broadcast their issues.
Come
we
on.
want to honor them.
Come on.
We're doing this to honor them. We're not doing this for ourselves. We're saying, hey, I see that you need,
That's right.
and I'm going to help you. And I'm not going to make you feel shame.
That's right.
I'm not going to dishonor you. I'm going to give you the honor you deserve.
I'm going to give you the honor you deserve.
I respect you.
Even though you're going through something difficult, even
Right.
though you're going through a trial, even though you're going through something hard, we're going to respect your human dignity. We're not going to broadcast to the church, Sally Sue lost her job, her kids are hungry, they don't have the right sheets for their beds, blah, 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 blah. We're going to do all these things for Sally Sue. And we're going to clap for our congregation while we belittle Sally Sue and make her feel small.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody
And
wants that.
That's ridiculous to try to put that on someone.
But think of how many times we do this. We raised all this funds to get all these coats for these kids in the inner city, and then you have a clip of all of these kids who, while they're smiling and they're happy they got something, what you're really trying to do is pat yourself on the back. You're no more different than that hypocrite who's standing on the corner saying, look at all the good deeds I've done. And God says, you've got your reward. The Grahams saw it. You got your reward. They saw it on social media. That's all you get. God's not going to repay that. Because at that point, you're not lending to God, you're showing off. See, we have an issue in the church at times where people take their almsgiving, they're giving to the poor, and all they want to do is show off with it.
Yeah.
Look at all the good that we've done. Look at all this stuff that we're doing. Now, I have a problem as a pastor because people need to know that they can trust us with their finances and that we do the right thing.
Right.
Oh my gosh, she's doing it again. She's just like, we skipped 3 episodes, you yawn once, and all of a sudden I start talking to you.
You just talk a lot.
I'm fine. You do it all by yourself. This is now going not to be the grace between us. This is going to be the grace amongst Laurie.
Whatever.
It's not going to be between the two of us. Quit yawning. No, let me get to the point. It's very important.
I'm
Protecting the dignity and worth of the individual in a time of crisis is why Jesus said, don't shout about these alms gifts. Keep it to yourself. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So in our church, there's been times where we've given to people. And I haven't necessarily gotten up in the pulpit and talked about what we've done. Now, at this moment in time, there's a particular family that is very far removed from our church for many reasons. But at the time, they're very much struggling. And I mean, kids are like sleeping on the floor. So we went and bought beds for them and bought all this kind of cool stuff so they could, have kind of a living arrangement that was suitable for young boys. And at the time, we didn't say anything about it. Now, many years after the fact, I think it's been at least 4 years after the fact, we can talk about it a little bit, and I don't give details because I don't want anyone to know who it possibly could have been, and 99.999% of you will never, ever, ever, ever know who that person was, and there's a reason for that. We're never going to divulge names or information of those people because they were going through something hard. There's a crisis happening in their life. Now, did the church come through and do the right thing? Absolutely. Are we proud of our church that we did the right thing? 100%. Was it hard to cut the check? Absolutely. We could have done other things with that money. Sure. But we knew we were destined to help people, and not just as a church, but as gracious people. And doing that, we're not just going to help you financially and walk away from you. We're not going to just help you financially and say, well, I hope it works out. We want to come alongside you. But in that, sometimes we need to keep to ourselves the good deeds that we're doing because we don't want to diminish the person in their time of crisis.
Yep, we need to protect their dignity and their honor.
That's right. We need to protect their dignity and worth.
Oh, to me, it ultimately just comes down to the golden rule, right? Do unto others what you would like them to do unto you. Like, come on, one. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So, when you think about that, when you're, about to talk about something you've done, how would you feel if someone did that when you were in need?
That's right. How would you feel if someone said, oh, I gave Laurie that, I gave her that coat she's wearing. She didn't have a coat. She was freezing. And so I did the right thing. And I went and got the coat and I threw it on her. And look at me, pat me on the back. How many of us are
totally guilty of that? Right?
We are.
And, but when you take a step back and you look inside, you can really see, where the heart is coming from. And to be honest, the alms giving concept is about being moved with a heart of compassion. Yeah. The motivation for alms giving is compassion. You see a need and you want to rectify it. You want to fix it, right? So it'll bleed into other areas of giving here in just the next couple episodes. But why would you tithe? Why would you do first fruits? Why would you sow a seed? One of the reasons is so when you're moved in a heart of compassion and you want to give towards a need, you actually have the funds to do it. Right.
We're not wondering where the funds are going to come from so that we can do the good things that God's called us to. Right? So part of this idea of alms is one about giving so that we learn the process of being generous, but it's also about giving to need so the dignity and worth of other people can stay intact, even in their time of crisis.
Yep.
You're not the one that's going to gloat about it. And God's going to repay because you lend to the poor, you lend to God, He will repay you. There's a 1-to-1 ratio there. He's going to get back into your hands anything you give away. But you're not going to be the one who shouts on social media. You're not going to be the one who uses someone's story of trouble and crisis just to elevate your own status. You're not going to be that hypocrite that Jesus talked about.
Don't do that.
No, you're not, because you have a heart of true compassion. This is a problem I have with the justice movement in our culture today. Too many of these folks are just in it. They're flexing for the gram. They're trying to put something on Twitter. They're trying to put something on Facebook to make themselves feel good. In fact, even recently, Barack Obama talked about it and said, this is not activism. This is not doing anything. Eventually, we need to have practical steps. And almsgiving is one of the most practical ways to bring justice to broken situations. And it's personal. And it's a personally responsible thing to do. You have to be responsible for you. I have to be responsible for me.
And me.
Sometimes. But the point is that collectively, that's not where the responsibility goes. It goes to the individual.
Yep.
Real almsgiving is not about your church giving to the poor. It's about you giving to the poor. Oh, come on now. Your church should do right things.
Everybody else's responsibility,
That's right. Because benevolence isn't about what we do as a collective. It's about what we do as an individual. Oh, good Jesus. We could talk about this for like another 4 hours.
No, but next time we're going to talk about, which one are we going to go to next?
Next one, we're going to go to actually one that's kind of hard to understand. It's the idea of first fruits.
First fruits, yep.
So what does it
I like
mean
this
to
one.
glean the corners of your field?
What is that even?
Right?
What is first fruits?
What
That's
is
like
first
an
fruits?
old term, right?
It's an old, it's an
We'll
old.
dive in. We'll dig
It's
deep.
an old English term
break it
from
down.
the King James, but
King Jimmy?
Yeah, from the King Jimmy, and again, not LeBron. He's
Not him.
Not him.
No,
He
he's
didn't
not
write a
King
Bible. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode of The Grace Between Us. And we'll be back next week with 2 more episodes. Mondays and Fridays looks like the schedule that works for
Yeah.
us when we're putting them out. We've flowed around a little bit, but Mondays and Fridays. And if you hadn't had an opportunity, go look at our podcast from last week, especially the one dealing with John MacArthur and Kanye West. I think you'll enjoy that for some of the ideas that we bring to that. Awesome. We love you guys. We'll see you next
you
time.
soon.